It's a drama with a bit of military tension, neighborhood politics, and a powerful reversal of power, all set in a suburban HOA community. Karen called police when I blocked my own driveway. Had no idea I'm a high-ranking military officer. The sun hadn't even hit its peak when the knock came at my door, not a polite rap, but a frantic, overzealous pounding that echoed through my home like an alarm bell. I'd only just moved in a week prior. I had no time to unpack, let alone meet all the neighbors, but I already had a hunch about who it was. Karen. I'd heard the whispers. The realtor even gave me a knowing look when I mentioned the address. She's very involved in the HOA, was all he'd said. I opened the door slowly, wearing what I always wore on weekends, black workout shirt, cargo pants, no name tag, no insignia. Just me. There she stood, mid-50s, perfectly coiffed hair, clipboard in one hand, cell phone in the other like a weapon. Her mouth was already moving. "You can't park like that," she snapped before I could say hello. "Good morning to you too," I replied. "I parked in my own driveway." She pointed, not even glancing back. "You're over the sidewalk. That's a code violation under Section 3B of the HOA Parking Covenant. Blocking a pedestrian path is a finable offense." My car, a matte black Chevy Tahoe, had its bumper maybe 6 inches over the sidewalk. It was barely noticeable. But this woman treated it like I'd driven through someone's living room. "I'll move it," I said calmly. "You will move it," she emphasized, as if she had the authority of a Supreme Court judge. I nodded once and closed the door. That should have been the end of it. I stepped out, grabbed my keys, reversed the Tahoe back a foot, and went back inside. But the moment I did, I noticed her still standing on the sidewalk, tapping on her phone furiously. I figured she was reporting me. Whatever. Let her. Then the sirens came. If you like this story, kindly subscribe this channel. Thanks for watching this story. 12 minutes later, 2 local police cruisers pulled into the cul-de-sac, lights flashing. I watched through my kitchen window as Karen greeted them like they were arriving for her birthday party. I didn't panic. I'd been through worse. By the time I stepped outside, the officers were halfway up my lawn. "Sir, we received a call about an illegally parked vehicle and potential trespassing," one of them said. Karen chimed in from behind. "He refused to move his vehicle when I told him. He's belligerent. We don't know who he is. He hasn't come to any HOA meetings." The second officer looked at me. "Do you live here?" I kept my voice even. "Yes, I closed on the house 8 days ago. My name's Daniel Rains." Karen scoffed. "That's not the name listed on the mailbox." I turned to her. "That's because the previous owner hasn't removed it yet. I haven't had time to replace it. I've been away on duty." "Duty?" she asked, eyes narrowing. The first officer looked me over again. "Mind showing us some ID, Mr. Rains?" I reached into my back pocket slowly and handed them a worn leather wallet. Inside was my driver's license and a military identification card with a silver eagle embossed on it. The officer blinked. "Colonel." "Yes." He handed it to his partner, who now stood a little straighter. Karen moved closer, trying to peer at the ID. "What kind of colonel? Is that even real?" she asked, voice sharp with suspicion. "I serve in the United States Air Force," I said. 32 years. Currently stationed at Peterson Space Force Base, recently reassigned here after a deployment in Europe. I now work in Joint Cyber Operations. Karen's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. The officer handed my ID back respectfully. "Apologies, Colonel. You're well within your rights to park in your own driveway. The HOA rules aren't enforceable by law in this context." "I figured," I said. Karen wasn't done. "But he's aggressive. And evasive." "He didn't tell me who he was when I asked."
Ma'am, the officer cut in.
You didn't have the right to demand identification from a resident on their private property. This was not a law enforcement matter. We suggest letting the HOA handle any further concerns through proper channels. Proper channels, she repeated, now flustered. If you keep calling in non-emergencies for personal disputes, we'll have to flag it, the second officer added. Karen went red. She sputtered a protest, then stormed off without another word, high heels clicking angrily on the sidewalk. The first officer turned back to me. Sir, sorry for the trouble.
Have a good day. You too, officer, I said, giving him a nod.
But the incident didn't end there. 2 days later, I received a thick envelope stuffed into my mailbox. No stamp. No name. Just a return address. HOA Enforcement Committee. Inside were 3 violation notices. All handwritten. All signed K. Walthers. Unapproved exterior lighting. Improper placement of waste bins. Obstruction of sidewalk. Second notice. Each violation came with a threat of escalating fines and a mandatory appearance before the HOA board the following week. I smiled. Not because I was amused, but because I'd seen this kind of power play before, not in neighborhoods, but in foreign capitals, in places where fragile egos often masked weak authority. I knew how this game worked. But Karen had no idea who she was playing with. HOA meeting. 7 days later. I arrived 5 minutes early, in uniform. Full dress blues. Silver oak leaves. Ribbons lined my chest. Commendations, theaters of service, achievements earned over 3 decades of leadership, deployment, and resilience. The moment I walked into the community center, the room fell quiet. Karen was seated at the head of a long folding table, along with 3 other board members. She looked up and went pale. Mr. Rains, she said, trying to recover. This meeting is to address repeated violations. Colonel Rains, I corrected, taking the seat directly across from her. One of the other board members cleared his throat. Colonel, we weren't aware of your service. Thank you. Please, let's go over the notes. I raised a hand. Before we begin, I'd like to clarify a few things. Karen opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the chance. I pulled the HOA bylaws. Section 3B does mention sidewalk access, but explicitly excludes personal driveways unless there's a pedestrian complaint. I checked with my immediate neighbors. None of them had a problem. A murmur of agreement came from the small group of residents seated behind me. Apparently, word had gotten around. Second, I continued, the exterior lights are the same the previous owner had for 3 years. I confirmed with time-stamped photos from the Zillow listing. One of the board members blinked. That's correct. I remember those lights. As for the trash bins, they were curbside for 6 hours before collection. County guidelines allow up to 12. I laid copies of my evidence on the table, photos, screenshots, excerpts from bylaws. I had prepared it like I would a briefing for the Pentagon. Karen didn't say a word. Now, I said, folding my hands, I'm willing to overlook the false reports and harassment if this stops here. I moved here for peace, but I don't tolerate intimidation disguised as governance. Her lips tightened. This is a community. We have standards.
I looked her directly in the eye.
You mistook your clipboard for a badge.
And you're not the authority here.
Another board member leaned forward. Colonel Rains, we sincerely apologize. This won't happen again. I nodded once. Good. I stood and turned to leave, but paused at the door. Oh, I added, I've contacted Base Legal. They've requested the HOA send all future communications through my JAG liaison. Just for clarity. Karen's face went sheet white. That was 6 months ago. Since then, Karen's power has dwindled. More residents came forward with stories, Petty fines, intimidation, unwarranted citations. A quiet movement formed. People began showing up to board meetings. A recall vote was scheduled. She resigned before it could happen. No one clapped. No one protested. She moved out a month later. Now, the neighborhood is quiet, peaceful. I park my Tahoe wherever I want on my property. I host barbecues on weekends. My flag flies high. Sometimes I still get looks. Some admiring, some curious, a few wary. But no more knocks, no more notes, no more Karens. Just the sound of jets in the distance and the satisfaction of knowing some battles are won not with weapons, but with truth, composure, and the quiet strength of someone who's seen real conflict and knows when a war isn't worth fighting and when it absolutely is.